Hello and welcome to the final NFL Sunday recap of the season of Week 17. I'm Big Italy 42. He's Jason Gilbo at JGilbo11. And obviously, our two teams have people to be mad at. Somewhat themselves, I guess. But my team in particular has one team that they're not too fond of right now. And that's the New York Jets. And I had a friend, actually, that told me he was going to the game in Buffalo. So I kind of knew that he jinxed it and the Bills were going to beat the Jets. But either way, this was a game that Ryan Fitzpatrick kind of turned back the clock from the good quarterback he was for much of the season back to the years where he was, a perennial backup and never was going to be a good starter, because that fourth quarter, I don't think he's ever played as bad as he did in that fourth quarter, and I don't know that many quarterbacks have played that bad in that fourth quarter in that situation ever.
Yeah, the Fitzmagic ran out, and I'm pretty bummed about it. I was enjoying the Jets season, that they're a good team heading into the playoffs. I was really going to root for him, but they disappointed, but at least Fitzpatrick did get Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker their final touchdowns of the season, as they just dominated this year. So, other than that, sorry, Jets.
I was looking forward to playing the Jets in the playoffs as a Bengals fan and not having to worry about the Steelers, but more on that here in a couple minutes, I guess. But congrats to the Bills, Rex Ryan. Yeah. I like Rex Ryan. The foot thing's kind of disgusting and weird, but I like Rex Ryan. I think he's a good coach, and you can't not be happy for the guy. He's hilarious. The whole
he won his Super Bowl.
Yeah, and he beat him twice. And he signed the guy that broke Geno Smith's jaw. Really, in all reality, Rex Ryan was responsible for that team even having a chance anyway. Think about it. That IK, I don't know how to say his last name, but had he not punched Geno Smith probably would have started, and the Jets would have been done for 6 weeks ago. So at least something good happened for the Jets this year.
Yeah, the entertainment value of the NFL would be a little bit lower if Rex Ryan wasn't in the league. So.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I hope he stays in that division forever, because he's always going to have that vendetta. Either way, next up, the Titans and the Colts. And, if you had bet at the beginning of the season who was going to be quarterback, or even last week who was going to be quarterback in this game, then I would have told you were crazy. But this one, the Colts obviously needed to win and get some help. They didn't get all the help they needed. I guess a couple of things happened the way they needed them to. But either way, this one, it wasn't a pretty one. Alex Tanney actually looked pretty good. I don't actually know anything about this guy. I heard he's a YouTube guy. I don't know what he's on YouTube for. I probably don't want to know. But this one was actually a pretty interesting game. Like, every time Red Zone was cutting to it was a fun game to watch. But ultimately, we all kind of knew that it wasn't going to matter at the end.
Oh, I thought it was like he won a contest, like he got to be quarterback for a half, and that's where he came into play.
In a no pressure type of situation, I guess.
Yeah. But, and then it proved, Delaney Walker is quarterback proof.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who's under center, Delaney Walker is going to get his.
Yeah. 14 targets for him. He was just absolutely incredible. And the Colts, Chuck Pagano, I don't think anything has actually happened yet, right? He didn't actually get fired yet. But if he get fired, that's a travesty, if you ask me. You lose your franchise player and then still come close to making the playoffs, albeit in a terrible division.
Yeah.
I think that would be a disgrace, and I'm guessing that aside from that one game that we all made fun of, that you probably still want Chuck Pagano back too.
Yeah, I definitely do. Who's better that's out there right now? That's my. There's no one.
Exactly.
So I think you got to look at the GM at this one. I think he's the guy who needs to go.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Patriots and Dolphins. Patriots once again. I can't use the term that I like to use here, but what they did was they choked when it mattered, and all they had to do was beat one of the worst teams in the NFL. Sorry, Dolphins, that's just the truth. And they lock up the number one seed. And I, for one, enjoyed seeing Tom Brady on the sideline, head in his hands, all pissed off because the team lost. The offense was bad. The defense didn't play badly. Gostkowski even missed a field goal. This team is about as low as they could possibly be going to the playoffs after they started 10-0. Now going to the playoffs as the number 2 seed, 12-4, and they're going to have to face the Bengals next week.
Yeah, but then they could have lost on purpose. That's always a theory that surfaces.
That's ridiculous. Bill Belichick, as smart as he is, would never lose a game on purpose.
He doesn't want to play the Steelers, who could possibly, I don't want to say it against you, but could possibly beat the Bengals.
Well, I guess it is set up so that they would only be able to play the Steelers in the AFC Championship, but unfortunately for the Steelers, they won't be there. But, the Dolphins side, they played admirably, I guess, as far as pride goes. It was a big game, and the players seem to care, which isn't something that often happens.
It took them 16 weeks, but
yeah, exactly.
They finally cared.
Yeah, if the season started with this game, it'd be, oh my God, how good are the Dolphins? Look at this. But let's all be realistic. It was one game. But
yeah, this was the defense that was supposed to be here this entire year.
Yeah, exactly.
And Lamar Miller saw 19 carries, so I'm glad they waited, until the final season to actually get him as close to 20 carries as possible.
And that he got to 19, and they were considering another run. They said, no. Lamar Miller cannot get 20 carries ever. Saints and Falcons, this one was a fun one for the first half, and then in the second half, it looked like two teams that belong on the outside looking in the playoff picture because, how many goal line fumbles were there in the second half? Because I remember at least 2, and I think it was 3. But obviously I wasn't focusing on this game, and I'm not sure why Red Zone kept cutting to it. It was kind of irritating with the games that actually mattered. But either way, this one, Julio Jones had a big game. Drew Brees had a big game. But that's about it.
Yeah, I don't know. These are two teams that have been letting us down this entire year, so it was no surprise. They had a 53 point total, I believe, at the beginning of the week, and then combined for 37. So it figures. This is Atlanta. They've been doing this all year, where they come horribly short to what they're supposed to do in a good matchup. But Devonta Freeman did get his touchdown, did have 100 combined yards, but not a great day for his price. Jones, one of the better receivers on the day, but also didn't find the end zone, so that was a little disappointing. I guess Benjamin Watson's the only real guy to really pay off his price tag.
Yeah, and the irritating thing about Julio Jones is it seems like when Atlanta gets in the red zone now, he just never gets red zone looks. And I don't know the numbers offhand on that, but I guess I haven't sat down and watched an entire Falcons game. I watch it in passing as it goes. Yeah, exactly. But you see the red zone plays, and I feel like it's always Devonta Freeman, or a tight end. And it's frustrating but everyone kind of had Julio Jones, so it wouldn't have made a huge difference anyway.
Yeah.
Ravens and Bengals here. Ryan Mallett, I personally don't like him. The commentators say a bunch of good stuff about him. I think the guy's a terrible teammate, but he has played well over the past 2 weeks. And, he finished the season strong. Obviously, he's not going to have this job next year because Joe Flacco's going to be back. And Tyler Eifert came back with a touchdown. A.J. Green, really, it was just the one drive where the Bengals were trying to get some distance. They went to him a couple times, got the touchdown, and that was it. Jeremy Hill, I guess, was the most encouraging part of this, the fact that he actually ran the ball pretty well. But all in all, this one was not an exciting game. As a Bengals fan who wanted him to win, I was still watching other games at the time because more important to me to see what else was going on.
Yeah, Cincinnati did what they needed to do. They ran the ball, they scored a couple touchdowns, and they just let that defense go to work. And Mallett threw 56 times, but extremely inefficient, as expected. I guess the only bum part about this was Kamar Aiken just finished with 76 yards on the day, who was really the only relevant target you would really take from this Baltimore offense. But Steve Smith coming out of retirement for next season, so hopefully the DFS sites put him criminally underpriced as they did this year when he was healthy. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to some AJ Green, Steve Smith stacks one more, maybe 2 more times. Hopefully they both stay healthy. But the next one was an ugly game. Steelers and the Browns seemed like both teams in the first half just kind of throwing away opportunities. Both teams turned the ball over a ton, and Roethlisberger's got 6 picks over the last 3 weeks. So
only you would know that.
Well, watch yourself on that one, Steelers fans. But Antonio Brown. Let's be honest here. You, me, my mother, my 5-year-old, anyone could throw the ball to Antonio Brown right now because the guy is just absolutely unbelievable. So, love or hate the Steelers. If you don't love and respect Antonio Brown's game, then you are absolutely out of your mind.
Yeah, and then just all caps here, I just want to make sure everyone reads this. If you're playing contests into the playoffs and into the wild card rounds and division rounds, play Antonio Brown in every contest because he's just going to eat. He's going to eat every week.
Yeah. As a dedicated Bengals fan, I'm seriously considering not playing DFS week 1 because I don't want to play Antonio Brown against my team as much as I love money. But, it's hard not to just play him in every contest every week, really, right now because he's just so good. You know it's coming, and you still can't stop it. It's just crazy.
Yeah. Should we talk about another cash game running back leaving the game in the first quarter?
Yeah.
With D'Angelo Williams? Because it wouldn't be another week of NFL DFS if a cash game running back didn't leave the game injured. Yeah. Thanks, D'Angelo Williams.
And there's another guy coming up in a couple games here who didn't leave the game injured but kind of sunk a bunch of lineups as well. So we'll get them. But D'Angelo Williams also is a concern moving into I guess he was in a walking boot, but he's getting an MRI today as of it's Monday. So we should know more on his status here later. But I think it was Fitzgerald Toussaint that came in And I mean, he was there. He wasn't great. He wasn't terrible. He was. I mean, you're down to your third string. I mean, D'Angelo Williams. I was telling a friend of mine who's a Steelers fan. I mean, he may have been the best free agent signing for any team this year because that team really did not miss a beat with Le'Veon Bell out. Either way, Jags and Texans next up, and this one was Houston defense and Nick Novak, like you mentioned, and unfortunately for Brian Hoyer, he did what he had to do, and that was it. And I still think he's great. They won the game easily, and he just managed when he needed to and made plays when he needed to. But only thing was DeAndre Hopkins hardly got any targets in the second half because Houston didn't need to throw the ball.
Yeah, it was the Saints game all over again. I mean, you kind of were anticipating the Jags defense or Jags offense to at least put some points up on the board, keep it somewhat competitive, but that didn't happen as Houston rattled off another monster week, 8 sacks and 1 pick six. So, I mean, if you had Nick Novak in Houston, you probably had a pretty decent day.
Yeah, absolutely. It seemed like the only way DeAndre Hopkins was going to get a touchdown in the second half is if they'd put him in as cornerback to get a pick six, but obviously that didn't happen. But either way, Texans did lock up their division now, so we'll see them next week in the playoffs. Redskins and Cowboys next up, and Kirk Cousins with the ultimate troll job. And we hear maybe one quarter, maybe one half was all speculation before it started. If you played him, you're lucky, and that's how I'll leave it at that. But 3 touchdown passes early in this one. Obviously, I thought he was going to go for. I guess there's a record of most consecutive games with 4 touchdowns and no interceptions, and I thought that's why he was in the game for so long. But he just got them ahead as far as you wanted. But if you bet the prop bet on Kellen Moore having more yardage and by far more than 100 yards, I think it was more than any other quarterback this week, then you can probably go ahead and quit your job and retire and buy your own island because no one saw that coming.
No, 435 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, I can't even put it in words. I mean, it's just, who would have thought? I mean, you probably either misclicked or you just punted, or maybe you just know Kellen Moore and you met him one time and you're just like, I'm going to play him a week 17.
And you're just a fan of blue fields and you're a Boise State fan.
And you paired him up with Terrence Williams, who had a monster day of 173 yards on 8 catches, but it was pretty insane. A cheap stack that would have worked because you would have paired him with the only 2 guys that possibly play for Dallas right now. I mean, Cole Beasley and Terrence Williams.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess one of the stories in this one was that Darren McFadden did get himself, I think it was a $300,000 bonus by getting to 1,000 yards. So good for him. But if you paired any of those guys from that cheap stack with this next guy, Odell Beckham Jr., then your chance of hitting big went out the window. And that's what happened on my best lineups was it was Odell Beckham sinking those with a game where the Giants score 30 points and we see Odell Beckham with 5 for 54. I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense. I understand it was the Eagles trying to take him out of the game, but if he's really that dominant of a weapon, if he thinks he's even close to Antonio Brown, then you just get open and you just get the ball. And he just didn't do that. And the story in this one really was just everybody got excited about DeMarco Murray's first touchdown, and I think his next 9 carries went for 8 total yards. But, I mean, he got his revenge touchdown against Chip Kelly. So I haven't seen tweets yet, but I'm sure there's one queued up there for him.
Murray was super cheap this week, so he did pay it off. But, yeah, I mean, Odell Beckham only targets 7 times now. Eli Manning wants to spread the ball around. Like, I mean, come on. I managed to fit all 3 big wideouts into one lineup this week, and OBJ was the one who really ruined it.
Yeah, that's how mine was as well.
Should have went Calvin Johnson. What an idiot of me.
Yeah, that was the contrarian. That was the Julio Jones from last week. But unfortunately, now no more Jordan Matthews as an awesome value play because the last 3 weeks he finished incredibly strong. So if you rode that train down to the wire, then you probably made yourself some money off of it.
Same with Zach Ertz. Yeah, another day.
Zach Ertz, I mean, I get not playing him on FanDuel because his price was almost $6K, but if you didn't play him on DraftKings this week, I'm almost 100% sure you did not make any money because
with that full point PPR.
Yeah, and at that price, he was unbelievably good. So, next up, Lions and Bears. You mentioned Calvin Johnson. He had a great game, and Matt Stafford. I mean, as far as second halves go, obviously it didn't matter due to things like that Hail Mary against the Packers and the fact that they started. I think it was 1-7, 1-6, something like that. But either way, as far as second halves go, Stafford was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and nobody's still talking about it because this team was so far gone. But he finished on a really high note. So Jim Caldwell owes him, I don't know, dinner, a car, maybe a house, because he might have just saved Jim Caldwell's job, and I'm not sure that Caldwell is the one that necessarily deserved it.
Yeah, I mean, if you look, I mean, the Lions could have possibly went 9-7, pretty close to 10-6 if a couple things turned their way this season. So, I mean, not a bad year for a lot of unfortunate events, but
Seahawks.
yeah, that's the one game, yeah. But I mean, 15 targets for Calvin Johnson. We've been waiting all season for a monster target game, and look what he does: catches 10 balls for 137 yards and a touchdown. So, if you look back and picked Stafford and Johnson just based on the game logs because they both had a monster day against Chicago last game, then well done.
Yeah, I thought the commentators were perfect when Calvin Johnson scored a touchdown, which was an obvious touchdown. There was no doubt to it. And they said, well, we better make sure they confirm it upstairs because we know about Calvin Johnson and Soldier Field. You never know. But either way, that was... And on the Bears side, if you played Josh Bellamy as a cheap play, then that paid off for you. But I did not because I don't know why you would have other than the fact that he was just men's salary. But Week 17 is always crazy stuff. You mentioned Zach Miller was a late scratch. So right before the game, we found out he wasn't playing. But I didn't want much part of that either.
Forte, 100 yards and a touchdown. So
yeah.
Last game is a Bear. Curious to see where he goes.
Yeah, he says he wants to stay, but let's be honest about that. Mm-hmm. Matt Forte's not coming back. Bucks and Panthers next up. Cam Newton did what he had to do. Kind of a slow start, I guess it was. And really the only disappointment as far as the Panthers side was if you played Greg Olsen, which I don't know why you necessarily would have, but they still needed to win this game. They put up a ton of points, and Greg Olsen gets 16 yards, including a catch down to the 1-yard line.
Yeah, which that would polish off your day right there.
Yeah.
You know, getting tackled at the 1. It was Devin Funchess, 8 targets, big day. He had seven catches for 120 yards and a touchdown. So without Ted Ginn out there, I mean, he kind of looked like the guy. So definitely surprising to see. But I think Ted Ginn's supposed to be back for the playoffs. So
yeah,
nothing to really worry about there, I guess. Yeah,
he'll be all right. But yeah, on the Bucs side, Mike Evans almost got a bonus, and that's about the only thing that was worth seeing there.
Well, Charles Sims, Doug Martin, they were decent. I mean,
yeah,
Winston checked down more than any other time I've seen this season. I mean, they both combined for 16 catches, which is just incredible.
He didn't want to have Josh Norman on a highlight reel for him, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
Raiders and Chiefs, this one looked like a blowout early. Chiefs got out to a big lead, and then the Raiders almost made, I won't say they almost did it, but they made it close at the end. They're down 13 in the fourth quarter, scored a touchdown, got the ball back. I think there was minute 40 left, something like that. Didn't even make it back to midfield, but an admirable effort, I guess you would say, for a team that really had nothing to play for. But Chiefs, arguably the hottest team in football. Offense is rolling, the defense is rolling, and this is a team that nobody wants to play. And the Texans get them. So if there's a defense that can slow down this balanced attack, it's definitely the Texans. So as ugly as that game may actually end up being with two defenses that are playing well, it's going to be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, I'm going to enjoy that one. I mean, you get to watch your childhood idol, Brian Hoyer.
I might be older than Brian Hoyer, to be honest with you. I'll have to look that one up, but...
I mean, I'm looking ahead at like next week's games. I mean, I'm trying to figure out, is it going to be Spencer Ware or Charkandrick West? I mean, that's kind of I think one of them are going to be in my lineups if I'm playing playoffs, but I mean, Ware was the guy. I mean, carried the ball 16 times, 76 yards, and a score. He was definitely the more efficient back, so I wouldn't be surprised if they lean on him a little bit more next week against Houston, because I'd rather attack Houston on the ground than through the air.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. And I did just look it up. Brian Hoyer is about 6 months older than I am, so maybe he is my childhood idol. At least he was here first. Seahawks and Cardinals, and as a known Carson Palmer disliker, I guess I'll say to be polite, I thoroughly enjoyed this one. The Seahawks, the Cardinals, I mean, both these teams, kind of a Jekyll and Hyde. You don't know what you're going to get from either of these teams, because last week we see the Cardinals just absolutely destroy the Packers, who, granted, have not been very good at all in the second half of the season anyway. But to beat them by 30, still a pretty impressive performance. Then they turn around and lose this game by 30. I mean, this was just an ugly game for the Cardinals. I don't know if they were looking ahead, but they probably assumed Carolina's not going to lose to the Buccaneers. But either way, I mean, Russell Wilson and the Seahawks on both sides of the ball looked great. And Richard Sherman with some trash talk after the game. I really, really hope these two teams play again in the playoffs, because I would love to see it.
Yeah, it'll be a fun one. And they flexed that Carolina game for a reason, but it turned out to be... Yeah, I mean, it turned out that both games didn't end up mattering in the second half. They knew what was going on. But if you took Larry Fitzgerald, he finished off with a touchdown, 6 catches, 55 yards. But other than that, I mean, there was no one really worth mentioning. No Doug Baldwin touchdowns this week. Just ludicrous. I don't know what happened.
I don't think that 99% of NFL fans know who 2 of the 3 players are that scored touchdowns for Seattle through the air.
Oh, I have a Chase Kaufman jersey.
Do you? I know of Chase Kaufman.
No.
I know Josh is a Chase Kaufman fan. He had mentioned him like years ago, I guess. But either way, I mean, he got his touchdown, so I mean, I guess he made it now. I've never scored a touchdown in the NFL, so I can't talk too much trash here. Speaking of no touchdowns in the NFL, the Rams and the 49ers, 19-16 in overtime, and what a stab in the heart for NFL fans. To have this game go to overtime. I mean, just let these 2 seasons end mercifully. They should have just let them have a tie at the end of regulation because no one wanted that. That wasn't fair for anyone. And, I mean, Trey Mason scored a touchdown.
That's it.
Yep, that's the end of it. It was ugly.
The Niners lost, 4 spots in the draft pick? They slipped 4 spots with this loss, or with this win. So,
congratulations to the 49ers for, missing out on an elite draft pick next year. But, this one, I was thrilled to not see any even highlights of this game hardly. Nobody cared. Chargers and Broncos, and obviously as a Bengals fan, I was holding out hope on this one. I did put a couple bucks on the Chargers money line just in case, but it was an admirable effort. I did the one few things that I did that panned out this week is I did play the Chargers defense and all my GPPs, which I of course didn't anticipate 5 turnovers, but this one, the Denver defense is just so damn good that the Chargers already missing a ton of players, lost Malcolm Floyd, lost a couple more offensive linemen. Danny Woodhead sat out for a couple plays. I mean, they just had nobody left. Still put up a fight. And then the real story, of course, that nobody other than Bengals fans really cared about that part anyway. But Peyton Manning comes back in after C.J. Anderson fumbles, not after a Brock Osweiler turnover. And then he just comes in, only threw a few passes, didn't put up huge numbers, but got the Chargers to jump off sides twice, as he does, because he's just a god at doing that. And then they're saying there's a quarterback controversy. No, there's not. Of course Peyton Manning is going to be the quarterback in the playoffs. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. But, I mean, according to Phil Simms, Peyton Manning rallied the troops and just won this game by himself despite throwing for just 69 yards.
It's hard to not love Peyton Manning after his post-game comments, though, because it was about the most humble thing ever. I don't know if you listened to it, but he talked about how Brock played well. He said the offensive line blocked better for me, it seemed, and the guys ran harder. And he's like, now I finally know what it feels like to warm up for a game and practice all week as the backup. He's like, it sucks. You don't get all the reps, but didn't say a single thing about himself. So, I mean, I'm a little bit bitter that Denver won. They were supposed to win, but, I mean, it's hard not to love Peyton Manning.
Yeah, and that Denver running game there. I mean, San Diego's been one of the worst run defenses in the league, and both of them go off. I mean, for almost identical lines. Both saw 15 carries. Hillman 117 yards, Anderson 95. Both scored a touchdown. So it took a long time, but if you had them in season long for your fantasy championships, if you're somehow playing in week 17 for fantasy championships, they paid off.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, every time they handed the ball off, you expected 6 to 8 yards because I mean the Chargers, even when they were making contact in the backfield, they just couldn't wrap up. I mean, it was not pretty, but I mean they were clearly outmatched. I mean it was a valiant effort for them. And I don't personally like Phillip Rivers, but you got to respect his game. I mean that dude never gives up, and in a season that was been completely lost for a long time, continued to play hard. So
tossed that 80-yard bomb down the field and was running down there like Brett Favre. I mean, week 17, your team's moving to somewhere and you're won 3 games all year. That shows you love the game.
Yeah. Mad props for Phillip Rivers, especially with that offensive line. I mean, that against that defense, it was brutal. So, speaking of brutal, the Packers. This is a team that, I mean, how important is Jordy Nelson? Jordy Nelson should probably win MVP this year, even though he didn't play, because. I mean, this offense is just bad without him. I mean, they're not even a top half offense. And I know the Vikings are good defense, but the Packers offense has done nothing hardly at all in the second half. And I know they're facing Washington, but I'm not taking the Packers in that game. I mean, this team just does not look good. And I'm on Team Kirk Cousins on this one. I just don't see the Packers winning a playoff game. And I know that's rich coming from a Bengals fan, but I didn't exactly predict the Bengals to win either. I'm just saying the Packers just do not look good.
No, I mean, that offensive line was really banged up. And, I mean, they brought John Kuhn in to be basically another blocker in the backfield, which is why you didn't see Eddie Lacy or James Starks much in the second half. He literally had to have John Kuhn next to him to block whoever the offensive lineman was just going to let through. So, yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, Washington's going to, I'm not going to say smoke Green Bay, but they should win by maybe 2 touchdowns come the end of the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's bet of the week if you ask me, but maybe you're not a betting person. Maybe you should be for 1 week at least. But either way, that's going to wrap things up for the final Sunday recap of the season. Hope you had fun recapping these games with us this year. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and check out the rest of our great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.